Why are there a whole lot of airplanes being recalled for safety reasons? How long is this going on for? Do they really know how their planes work? Hi, I'm Justine, the nerdy half. I love to travel, but I also know that with everything going on in the world these days, I need to keep myself informed. So every week I bring you an update on what's happening in current events, news, politics around travel. Today I'm going to look at what's been happening in our airports. Anyone who takes air travel is going to be interested in this. You've probably already seen headlines. You know that there's something to do with the Airbus and it was grounded because of solar flares and something about that interacting with its software. And if you're like me, that makes you wonder, is this the sort of thing that's going to happen more often? Every time the sun burps, the software goes out in your airplane? That sounds a little concerning. I actually looked it up. How often do solar flares happen? Turns out they're pretty frequent, like we're looking at minimum one a week, sometimes a couple a day. So to think that they affect one of the most common airplanes in the world is a little worrying. So I did my research and I'm going to share it with you today. Don't get me wrong, this video is not supposed to scare you, it's supposed to reassure you. I'm going to give you all the details so you go into your next flight fully informed and feeling a little bit more comfortable about things. I'm going to look at what actually happened and whether or not we should be worried about that. I'm going to look at how it might affect your future travel plans. I'm going to look at how they're addressing the problem and who's going to keep an eye on things for us going forward. So first of all, what actually happened? Well, what's happening now in airports across the world is a whole lot of airplanes have been grounded. And so this means we've got queues and we've got delays, we've got cancelled travel plans. That's not fun, but believe me, it's a lot more fun than what happened to the people who were on the plane at the time. In late October, a JetBlue Airbus A320 on a routine trip in the States suddenly plummeted. It drastically pitched downwards, injuring several people and forcing an emergency diversion. It also triggered the largest safety recall of Airbus in history. And while I do feel sorry for those that were stranded in airports and had their travel plans suddenly changed, this actually was a really good thing because it means the systems work. So what actually happened to that plane? Well, there was an intense burst of solar radiation, which we sometimes call space weather. And this particular set of space weather interfered with the computer on board the plane. A particularly useful bit of software called the ELAC. It stands for Elevator Aileron Computer. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that, so I'm going to stick with ELAC. The ELAC is part of a fly-by-wire system that helps the pilots control the pitch and roll of the plane. So instead of a mechanical system, there's an internal computer system that translates the pilot's inputs into movements in the elevators and the ailerons. Sorry, I don't know how to say that at all. I am obviously not a technical person here. If you do know what I'm talking about, perhaps you could clarify it in the comments below. But my basic understanding is that now there's a computer system that does most of the work for lifting the nose up and down or tilting the wings. And while this has made things generally safer, it does make us reliant on complex software. And in this case, that software was vulnerable to a solar flare. A solar flare, or coronal mass ejection, sends electronically charged particles through the Earth's atmosphere at the speed of light. And when these high energy particles strike an aircraft at cruising altitude, which is above 28,000 feet, it interferes with the electronics. In this case, it corrupted tiny bits of data inside the ELAC's memory. So the computer got false information about what was happening to the plane's nose and it directed the plane downwards suddenly. This was not something that the pilot had ordered it to do. Now when you just hear that part of the story, that sounds pretty freaky. But it is important to know that this is a very rare and specific case. It requires quite a complex combination of that particular version of the software, that particular solar activity at that particular flight level, and that plane's hardware design. But just because it's rare doesn't mean it's never going to happen again. So of course, airlines did the right thing and instantly recalled all of their Airbuses to check the software. And you should also know, for added reassurance, that the pilots were able to take over immediately and get everyone to safety. Airbus responded immediately by issuing an alert which made sure that nobody could fly their planes again until they had updated the software and checked all the hardware. For most of the planes, this was actually pretty quick and simple. About 80% just required a patch up on their software and they were back rolling again within a few hours. But there are about 900 older planes which require full hardware updates, and this is going to take a few days. This massive recall kind of shows the double edge of having such an automated system. Yes, we're able to find the faults and fix them reasonably quickly, but it means that when we do detect one, a whole fleet will have to come down at once. But I'm pretty happy that they did act so quickly and took it seriously. Yeah, it's an inconvenience, but safety comes first. So what's the practical impact for us? Well, over the next few days and weeks possibly, while the older planes are getting upgraded, some of us will still be impacted in terms of our flight delays. And of course, it's a ripple effect. The A320 is a really popular plane. It's used in a lot of short hauls, domestics and international flights. So grounding it has had an impact globally. You can expect queues and delays, and if I were you, I'd look really carefully into your insurance policies. Most major airlines are contacting their customers, but they're under a lot of stress right now, so it would pay to be proactive. Keep a close eye on your flight. We don't know how long this is going to impact with this ripple-on effect. To fix the entire fleet, it is going to take some time. If you don't have your airline app on your phone, you might want to download it now, because this is probably the place where you'll get the first set of information. Because if you need to rebook, you've got to remember that there's hundreds of others trying to rebook at the same time, and you want to get in there fast. Because this is a safety recall, you should expect at least a rebooking, if not a refund. But you do want to check your rights in your particular airline and read through all that small print. And as for hotels you might have pre-booked or rental cars, that gets a little bit trickier. Hopefully you've been taking your screenshots and you've got lots of info for your insurance company. So while we're all reading our small print, the pilots are checking up on all their information too. Pilots want to get home to their families safely too. So pilots and airlines are now monitoring solar weather a little bit more carefully, and other manufacturers are looking at their software and hardware too. This vulnerability to solar radiation isn't just an Airbus issue. All aircraft are vulnerable to it. So they all need to go and check that they have the software and the hardware to be able to cope with it. It was just the Airbus that got hit this particular time, this specific issue. But don't worry, we can be very grateful and thankful to those passengers and pilots and crew who went through that issue on that particular Airbus, because many steps are now being taken to protect the rest of us. This will take a while, and as yet we just don't know what impact that's going to have. In terms of pricing, we shouldn't expect any changes in the short term, but who knows long term. If it turns out there has to be some major fixes, that might have a trickle-down effect on ticket prices. But basically for now, flying should feel as safe as it did before, especially on the A320s, because any of them that are in the air now have had their software update. One of the reasons we can feel safe is the regulatory framework that sits behind all of this. I mean, when you think about it, it's not as simple as just giving someone a buzz or texting them, hey, can you put the planes down while we look at the computers? Grounding an entire fleet is a huge task. That requires a lot of coordination between multiple countries, multiple companies, each of them with their own policies and protocols. So for things to be able to happen so fast actually gives me a little bit of faith in the system. First, it's the manufacturer. The Airbus manufacturer itself had to issue a directive, an alert operations transmission. And this was serious stuff that basically said there could be data corruption that impacts on the plane's ability to fly, so get them on the ground. This directive goes to the regulator. So you've got the European Union Aviation Safety Agency and the Federal Aviation Administration in the US, plus all the other regulators in the smaller countries. These are the people who can issue a legal directive saying, look, the manufacturers have told us this, and you can't fly until you fix the problem. then the airlines have to act, and they have to do it fast. And this is not just about communicating to the passengers and sorting out all our issues. They've also got to get in their maintenance teams, they've got to book hangar time, they have to find the computer units if they need to replace the hardware, and they've got to juggle around all the schedules as well. And then it's all got to be certified and checked. It's not good enough just to say, yeah, we plugged it in, we're good to go. Somebody's got to come out there and see you've done it right. There really is a lot involved here. So while it's inconvenient and also a little unnerving to see planes that we're so familiar with being grounded, I also find it kind of reassuring to think about everything that's going on in the background. There are a lot of people working together to make sure we're safe. But another thing that's come out of all of this, of course, is communication and knowing that those communication systems are there. So take advantage of them. One of those communication systems is people like you and I just talking to each other. If you've got updated info or more information and detail around this situation, please leave it in the comments below so we can keep each other informed. As with all travel news, I'm going to keep you updated through the YouTube community and my weekly videos. What's going to happen next week? Who knows? Let's find out together. Until then, happy travels everyone.